Welcome to Local Flavor. I'm Deborah Anderson, and today I'm going to make for you some Dreamsicle Fudge. Now I call it Dreamsicle because it reminds me of when I lived in Hutchinson and we got a Brahms in Hutchinson, and my friend Kathy said they've got the most delicious Dreamsicle ice cream. It was vanilla ice cream with orange sherbet swirled in, and it was so yummy. And so this is some fudge with the same idea. It's a vanilla and an orange flavor. And so I actually got this recipe because I used to do a home party plan called Taste of Home Entertaining, and when I had a hostess I would always give them extra points if they would make a recipe from Taste of Home magazine, and this is one that one of my hostesses found, and it was so delicious. So I had her give it to me. They always thought I knew all the recipes by heart since I was with Taste of Home. So I'm going to start out first by putting some butter in my 9x13 pan. And I need 1.5 teaspoons. Now, since I'm using a stick of butter, I know that there's 3 teaspoons and a tablespoon, so I'm just going to kind of cut the tablespoon measure in half. This recipe calls for 1.5 tablespoons for the pan, and then 3/4 cup for the fudge itself. So to help me get a little bit ahead and to be a little less messy, I'm going to go ahead, that's not where I wanted that. I'm going to put this in the saucepan. I'm going to use the paper to smear it around. And while I smear it around, I'm going to go ahead and start my butter melting on the stovetop. Also, I'm using my favorite spatula today because it has a nice chiseled rectangular edge. It's still a spoon the way I like it, but when you're working with something like a fudge or a candy, you're really going to like that kind of an edge. So this will be a mess any way you slice it. Hopefully I'll put this someplace warm so it'll level out a little bit more. That'll make it easier to get the fudge out when you're dying to have it later. So I'm going to move over to the stove and start putting my other ingredients in. Let me bring my recipe with. I've got my wiping towel with me, thank goodness. This is just starting to melt. And once I get most of it melted down, I'm going to add sugar and some heavy whipping cream. And we'll want to get this all the way to boiling, and then once it starts boiling, I'm going to set my timer, and during the time that it's boiling, I am going to be stirring it the entire time, constantly scraping the sides of the bowl and the bottom so it doesn't scorch. I need to do it for 4 minutes, so I have a timer ready to go as soon as I get to boiling. This is right here, 3/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. This is really good for the holidays. I didn't really want to try Dreamsicle when I first heard of it because I'm kind of a chocolate fan, but it's really delicious. So I gotta thank my friend Kathy for making me try the first Dreamsicle at Brahms. This is 3 cups of sugar, just regular C&H sugar. Nothing special about it, not powdered sugar or turbinado sugar, just plain old table sugar. This is actually going to take a minute, well, several minutes to get hot enough to boil. So while I'm waiting for it to get to a boiling temperature, I'm going to take a real quick break and clean out my measuring cup so I can use it later in the recipe. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back checking on my pan full of sugar and cream and butter, and I can tell it's getting ready to boil because when I scrape around the edges, I'm getting a real suckly feeling, like it's wanting to suck it back. So once it gets into a boil, I'm going to turn it down just a little bit, and then it'll be 4 minutes of constant stirring. And that's when I'm really glad I have this spatula, which, I don't know, I've probably talked about it before, but I picked it up at Destination Kitchen, and it became my fast favorite. The first thing I ever made with it was Dreamsicle Fudge. Can you hear that slurping? It's definitely really close to boiling. Oh, I don't want to spill it. Oh, it kind of sounds like I've been watching a lot of that Walking Dead show that's such a big hit. Sounds a little like the zombies in here. That's terrible. Okay, I'm going to turn this down because I think it's ready to boil. That's the trouble when you watch it, you know. Back up. There I go. I'm getting some bubbles now. It's just about to take off. And what I'm trying to do with this boil, it will thicken it up, and it will make sure that all the sugar granules are really melted. Although I kind of like it when you still feel a little bit of the grain. But your goal with fudge is always to get that out. Okay, I've got a good boil now, so I'm going to set my timer. I'm setting it for 4, so you just got to bear with me. I'll see you after 4 minutes. I'm going to be busy here stirring. Okay, I've only got about 20 seconds left of stirring this boiling fudge base, and then I'm going to take it off of the burner and start putting the other ingredients in. We're going to put a whole bag of white chocolate chips and a 7-ounce jar of marshmallow cream. Oh, that's my cue. Let me bring this away from the stove. Now, the more quickly I add this, the easier it will be to melt these. We really want to get them all melted and incorporated in. However, I can tell you it will not break my heart if I get a little punch of leftover mini white chocolate chip after we're done. So yeah, they're supposed to melt, but I never cry. If they don't, I'll get melted. That was a 12-ounce bag, or this was an 11-ounce bag that we put in. And then let me get a better spatula for getting out the marshmallow cream. I find that I go to these small spatulas all the time because they're great for clearing out little jars and bowls like this. That's not going to be nice to clean up later. It will take me a second to get this incorporated in. So once I get all my marshmallow cream in, I'll take a little break again and just whip it like crazy. I would love to put it in my KitchenAid, but I have had really bad luck whenever I accelerate things that are hot. Some of you might have known when I made that syrup. I made homemade iced snow cone syrup, and I tried to shake it before it was cooled, and wow, my whole kitchen was clean after that because it was everywhere. In my hair, on the ceiling, my goodness. Things when they're hot are not good to be agitated. So I'll do it by hand. This is all just stirring, so if you want to get yourself a drink while I go ahead and stir, let's take a quick break and I'll be back in a minute. This always takes so much longer than I remember, but it's easy to forget once you start tasting them. I've got this pretty much mixed up, so this is the vanilla part, and I'm going to take out 1 cup of it, and I'm going to use the same measuring cup I used for my whipping cream that I just rinsed out. I'm going to take out 1 cup for later, and then we'll put the color in and the flavoring to give it that orange flavor. I've got most of the lumps out. Like I said, I can never get all of the white chips all the way melted, but they're a nice surprise. This is a big mess, but I think you'll think it's worth it. Okay, I'm going to put in 5 drips of food coloring. 3, 4, 5, and I need 12 of yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I saw 2 come out. 8, 9, 10, 11. If it's not perfect, I mean, it'll just be a little different shade of orange. Not that big a deal. And I need to put in about 3 tablespoons of orange flavoring. And this bottle, I have to tell you, is not great for pouring. But 3 teaspoons. Which is 1 tablespoon. That would have been easier. I got a little thing for my fridge that tells all the equivalents, and it's been a lifesaver. Ooh, that smells like liquor. I got a big whiff of that orange up my nose. No sinus troubles. Okay, I'm going to get this as smooth as I can. And now I'll pour it into my big pan. I will say that you'll want to use the big pan. Some people like to put it in a smaller one and make a thicker fudge, but it will crack quite a bit when you cut it. So it is better to make it a little bit thinner. Isn't that a gorgeous color? And it smells so good. Dreamy. Sorry for that noise. Now I'm going to drip the reserved vanilla flavor out, and I'll just put maybe 6 or 7. It doesn't have to be very pretty because we're going to drag a knife through it. I remember in the 80s that was the big thing, was to marble everything. Suddenly you got all those cake mixes that were marbled, and it was the coolest thing to drag a knife through and make a pattern in it. And that's what we're going to do with this. Oh, I better get busy. It's starting to set already. So let me grab a knife. And I'm just going to drag it through just like you've all done with your cakes. Back and forth, both directions. So we'll go one direction first, and When we get to the end, I'll go lengthwise. Ah, so cool. Okay, and this is what it looks like. I'm going to put it in the fridge for a while to let it set up. And I'll be right back as soon as it's set up and show you how to serve it. Okay, so here's my fudge after it's set up for a while in the fridge. I'm just going to cut it into tiny squares. Fudge is really rich, so you don't want it to be the size of a piece of cake or anything. Ah, it's super stiff. Oh my goodness, that was hard. And I'm going to cheat and use my spatula. It's easier. Make little squares about the size of the spatula. Another tool, I used a ton more than I ever thought I would, little tiny spatulas. Serving spatulas this time. So see how it looks there? Orange and white. The orange has the orange flavor and the white has the vanilla. So it's like a dreamsicle. First bite, I got a surprise little nugget of white chocolate that didn't melt all the way. I love that. So no complaints here. Very refreshing, great for the holidays. A lot of labor, but really not quite that difficult. Be sure and give it a try for your holiday entertaining Dreamsicle Fudge. See you next time on Local Flavor.